It's funny that I should press that.
Yeah. Number one straight away.
Yeah. So my business partner, Tim, one of his oldest friends who I've met on a number of occasions now, is called David Watts. So I'm sure that will be one of his favorite tracks.
Okay.
Anyway, hello, everybody. Hi, Andrew.
Hi,
lovely
everybody.
to see you as always. Welcome to that album. And this week I'm joined by the lovely Helen. Not Helen Davies, though. I thought there would have been a fantastic opportunity for you to be Helen Davies.
Absolutely. But I missed that one.
Yes, and today we're doing something else by the Kinks, which, it's been an interesting week. I was going to start with something really sarcastic. I was going to say the Kinks wrote some of the great songs that typified the 60s and the early 70s, such as Sunny Afternoon, You Really Got Me, Lola, All Day and All of the Night, Dedicated Follower of Fashion, Dead End Street. Sadly, none of them are on this album, though.
There was a temptation. Don't forget, this year is marking the 60 years of the Kinks, and
is it?
There is a double. Well, the first launched, but it's called Journey 1 and Journey 2. Journey 2 being launched later on in the year, as far as I know, and there'll be various events going into 2024. And I thought, the volume 1, there's the album to do this week, and then I thought, no, let's actually step back.
Let's do a proper album.
There's that was one of the things that made them, I think, had with some difficulties in their early years, because when they tried to create a studio album and sell it, it was the cut price compilation albums of the
yes, I read that. I read that there were loads and loads of Kinks things being sold out.
And so
and whatever.
Now, by that same token, with the Kinks, I don't know if they would have followed a different road if they hadn't actually been banned from the United States pretty much early on in the 60s. Just check my facts here that they what do they call it? Not Beatlemania, but
the British invasion.
The British invasion. Thank you. That's exactly the one I wanted to say. But they, as I said, very early on, just managed to get banned. There are various stories about why they were banned.
Well, I mean, I remember that. So when I was very young, hi Ian, nice to see you. When I was very young, my father, he played quite a lot of the Kinks and Bob Dylan and the Beatles and Frank Sinatra. So he had quite wide taste, but a lot of this was going on in the background. And I remember being rather embarrassed by both Dedicated Follower of Fashion, when he pulls his frilly nylon panties right up tight, and that line particularly, but also Lola, where clearly it's about transvestite, and I mean, when you're 8 and you understand what this stuff is, but you don't, and your parents are there, it is a bit kind of embarrassing. So I get why it would be banned, but I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because this was 1967 that this album came out, and looking at what else was going on, so many pivotal things in Britain's history was happening. So North Sea gas started flowing. Liverpool Cathedral, Crown of Thorns, opened. I'm not religious, but it's a major architectural
Part of
slate.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
The sit-in at the LSE following a student being suspended. We begin EEC joining negotiations. Parliament nationalised steel. The National Front was founded, and just those two things, nationalising the steel industry and the founding of the National Front.
Yeah.
We've got this very polarised society going on.
That's right.
Concorde was unveiled. The first colour TV broadcast was that. Do you know what it was? It
Oh,
was
do tell.
Wimbledon.
Oh, okay. Well,
Uh, and
quintessentially English, as this album actually is, and as
yeah,
they are.
absolutely. And some interesting births, some great people. I'm not particularly a Nick Clegg fan, but I don't dislike him. So Nick Clegg, Mark Lamar, Stelios, Sam Taylor-Wood, the director, Gaza, Noel Gallagher, not a fan. Jason Statham, Jason Plato, Dom Jolly, and they're all very positive. And on the flip side of that coin, Michael Gove. Died Gillian Lee, Clement Attlee, Malcolm Sargent, Basil Rathbone, Brian Epstein, Donald Campbell, killed on Coniston Water.
Okay.
Some great books published, The Naked Ape and Where Eagles Dare, being my
Desmond
favourite
Morris.
of those. And in terms of TV and film, really amazing stuff. So Trumpton first aired, as a child of that era. Trumpton and Camberwick Green and Chigley were part of my childhood.
Okay.
But Blow Up, starring David Hemmings about David Bailey, but Casino Royale, the original one with David Niven, You Only Live Twice, The Graduate, In the Heat of the Night, The Dirty Dozen, Bonnie and Clyde, The Producers, and the animated Jungle Book. And for music, oh my God, just Sgt. Pepper's, The Magical Mystery Tour, Piper at the Gates of Dawn by Floyd, Disraeli Gears by Cream, The Doors by The Doors, The Velvet Underground by Nico, who obviously can't sing. I've Never Loved a Man, Aretha Franklin, that I did with Eric a few weeks ago. Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix, that I did with Eric a long time ago. It's like an amazing period in terms of stuff going on culturally in the world.
Yeah. And maybe that's what's actually happening now. You mentioned a word earlier about Britain and its polarization, if you like, the in terms of what was happening. And I think we're actually into that very much similar phase now.
Very much so.
And
isn't it interesting that we've got like a high level of racism in society, which we're seeing, paralleling to the foundation and the formation of the National Front. But equally, we've got a high level of extreme wokeness in this country. And I know socialism and wokeness are not the same thing, but they're on that side of the coin.
In the milieu.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, that now, like 55 years on, nothing's changed. Nothing. It's all just like it was then. And it does make you wonder, doesn't it? But one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this album, and obviously as we go through it, we'll at specific instances, is that it sounds very British. It sounds very much like the British invasion. It is peculiarly English in the phrasing and the narrative which is going on in the songs, which I found just really interesting listening to.
Which is one of the reasons why I chose the album as well, because for me, it's probably down or due very main to Ray Davies and his ability to write. And with just going back to that point about the unresolved dispute with the American Federation of Musicians during their 1965 tour, they sat down and, if you like, between himself and his brother, I think Ray Davies has always been described as very much the standing in the background, very considered, very, whereas his brother Dave had a tendency, or has a tendency, I don't know at this point, don't know him personally, but that he was out there, a little on the outlandish side, a little bit suggestive of the, the old feather duster.
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because when I'm so the first song, David Watts,
Correct. Yeah.
the song is about the singer's great admiration for fellow schoolboy David Watts, who appears to have a charmed life.
Yeah.
And there is an undercurrent of either deep envy or, as AllMusic put it, a schoolboy crush.
Yeah.
And one of the things that David Watts apparently was a concert promoter in Rutland, so kind of like the Midlands. He goes on to relate how the real Watts was gay and demonstrated an obvious romantic interest in his brother, Dave Davis.
Mm-hmm.
In this light, lines such as, "He is so gay and fancy free, and all the girls in the neighborhood try to go out with David Watts, but can't succeed," provide a second level of interpretation based on this ironic in-joke. And in a previous interview, Ray Davis recalled to Q magazine, "My brother Dave was in a flamboyant mood, and I could see that David Watts had a crush on him. So I tried to persuade Dave to marry David Watts because he was so connected with the Rutland Brewery. So we get free beer for life."
That's right. There's a huge amount of storylines that go. But as I said, it all comes back to the fact that the writing is being done literally by looking into their own backyard, as it were, and that's why it is recognised as being so quintessentially British. And it's for me, the writing is a social statement on where things were at in that particular period, sort of the mid '60s, and so maybe will we have a taste of David Watt?
Indeed.
If I should dare. Forgive me.
I love the opening. I love the opening line. "I am a dull and simple lad, cannot tell water from champagne, and I have never met the Queen. I wish I could be like David Watts." It is. There's a lovely naivety, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
This is sweet. Simple lad, cannot tell water from champagne, and I have never met the Queen, and I wish I could be like David Watts. And when I am like velvet night, I dream I can fight like David Watts.
So I do like this.
It's not the best one, but it's
no. I do think that it sounds a little bit like what the Beatles were doing 5 years previous, doesn't it?
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, but I mean that's one of the beauties now that we'll get to hear over the album, is that it actually comes in very, very quietly into various genres, and also to actually see the influences that it had in terms of the not only say the Beatles, but the Rolling Stones in terms of bass drummer, for example. The sharing of musicians, but at the heart of it, it's
absolutely
at the heart of it, it's Ray and Dave.
Well, it's really interesting because I was only peripherally aware of Dave Davis, and to see that he was kind of very much a driving force behind it. So Ray Davis, obviously the frontman, the guitarist, the one that did all of the interviews, the one that you would think he is the Kinks. And when there was talk of a feud between Dave Davis and Ray Davis, I just why didn't Ray Davis just say, "Well, piss off then. Don't need you." But clearly he did.
No, yeah.
Which I think is
they needed each other. I think they were an act in themselves, but I believe also that they in many ways, I wonder, did they ever, in a sense, go beyond their childhood together? I mean, they lived in a house that I think they had 4 older sisters, and there was, again, it's suggested sort of particularly Saturday nights and basically listening into the parties that were happening in the front room of the house in North London. And one of them, as I said, Ray, would have been the very, very quiet, intellectual, actually.
Well,
and not to say that Dave wasn't intellectual, but that they were like two sides of the one coin.
Yeah. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right, Jim. They did do a great cover of this.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's great to know.
Also interesting that, yes, it introduced the Kinks. Now, had my dad not have played the Kinks to me, I wouldn't have heard the Kinks until the Jam covered it.
Yeah.
And I think that just that little bit of age difference, I suspect, Rob, the reason that you prefer the Jam version is because it's the one you heard first. So like good as Dolly Parton's version of "Is and I Will Always Love You," everyone heard Whitney Houston first, so therefore that's the kind of the one that we're stuck with.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
No, I do indeed.
So track 2, "Death of a Clown."
Yes, chamber pop and Dylan-esque. How about those?
Yeah.
Now listen.
Yeah, absolutely. So in an interview with Yahoo, Dave Davis said that "Death of a Clown" was written about the repetitive performing schedule that he and the Kinks worked through. He said, "One night I nodded off at a party and woke up and saw all these decadent people running around. I had a vision of being a circus clown. I thought, what are we doing? Why are we going from day to day like performing seals?" And I guess that if you do go from obscurity to success quite quickly, then
back again.
Yeah. So here we go, "Death of a Clown."
Yeah.
I do think that there is an undercurrent of profound sadness and utility of life in all of the works of certainly on this album. In some of the other songs that of the Kinks I'm familiar with, there's it's much more embracing of people being themselves and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But here it does feel like they feel they're stuck in some sort of factory, and it's quite, in that way, it's quite a depressing album, even though it's quite jolly. The tunes.
No,
it's a bit sad and dark, isn't it?
It's very much an album about loss, and we'll see that in when you get down through some of the tracks to which one, the end of this season. We'll get there, but definitely there is. It's about a sort of an introspective, I think, view, but perhaps it's also telling the story, if you like, of Britain. Just, here we had in America, you have the flower power and the export of so many of the British musicians and singer-songwriters and so forth, because that was where the money was being made, I guess. But these guys, very much an introspective. Yeah, I won't say any more than that at the moment.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I was too young at this time to be aware of what was going on in Britain, and obviously, even if I had been 5 years older, I would have had no frame of reference for this.
Mm.
But it's like when you listen, and the best group of all time, without any shadow of a doubt, is the Beatles, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
When you listen to their songs of this period, things like Paperback Writer and Baby You Can Drive My Car and stuff like that, and you just listen to the lyrics and you go, God, it must have been a grim, oppressive place, Britain in the 60s, even though, you know, flowery shirts and free love and all of that is one side of it. But the other side of the coin is, you know, real life for most people was people working in factories, doing jobs they didn't like, living with their parents. You know, homosexuality was a crime.
Yeah.
Drugs were a crime. Don't get me wrong, I'm not promoting the use of drugs,
No,
but you know,
no.
nowadays, if you want to experiment with stuff, 9 times out of 10, unless you're dealing, you get a slap on the wrist and told to not do it again. Whereas there, you know, it just everything about that era was, well, grim, it seems.
While I sort of part of, I suppose, picking this, just I am a few years older than you, Adam. So
You're nearly 30, aren't you?
I'm
now?
nearly 30 plus, as I say. However, my memory brings me to, I mean, I was born and grew up in the Southern Hemisphere. And, but every 2 or 3 years, we would make a boat journey or a ship. We would board a ship at Cape Town and end up in Southampton. And then we would spend some weeks in Reading, Berkshire, where my grandmother lived. And I still have, I mean, I was only, you know, throughout that period of the 60s, you know, from the first time, I can't say that at 3 years of age I would have remembered too much, but the next journey and the one that followed, to actually go, you know, to even walk around London or around Reading, and actually just observe. It was like when I listen to these songs, I can actually remember feelings, sensations.
I bet you can.
So,
Yeah.
so
And you know, there's so much stuff that was just unacceptable. Is unacceptable now, but was normal then. You know, slums and tenement buildings with, you know, sewage coming out of the thing when everyone was having a shower at the same time, and you know, bed and breakfast with no blacks, no dogs, no Irish on above the thing. You know, and it's just like,
and almost no women.
yeah, and it's just like, you know, and different pay rates for men and women, and you know, same job, you know, man's pay rate this, women's pay rate this, and it's just like, how did people even think this was acceptable? I mean, I know you're a product of your times, but surely, you know, people must have thought this is wrong. Anyway, Two Sisters,
Anyway,
another
Two Sisters. And here's another one, actually. Yeah.
Cheery little thing. She was so jealous of her sister and her liberty and her smart young friends. She was jealous of her sister. Sylvia looked into the wardrobe. Priscilla looked into the frying pan. You know, it's like this is again. It's not a happy topic, is it? Really?
Nope.
So here we go.
There's some very, very interesting musical instruments used in this one.
Yes.
Priscilla looked into the washing machine and the drudgery of being wet. She was so jealous of her sister and her liberty and her smart young friends. She was so jealous of her sister. Priscilla looked into the wardrobe. Priscilla looked into the frying pan and the bacon and eggs and the breakfast dessert. She was so jealous of her sister and her way of life.
Yeah, I mean, this narrative, it does remind me of black and white images of housewives wearing their house coats with a feather duster and a hairnet and all of that sort of thing that was
The house coat, not an apron. Very good.
yeah. But of that, and it reminds me very much of the Courage beer adverts, TV adverts of the 70s and 80s, just harking back to this time, proper working class stuff. So, which brings us on to No Return.
No Return.
Now, this I thought actually was quite a change.
Well, bossa nova style. Here we come.
So I thought,
No Return as a title, however, is pretty grim.
well, yeah, it is. But musically, I think you can sniff a lot of influences that this song seeded for many years to come in terms of its style.
Yeah.
And this was most impressively covered by Chrissie Hynde, in a sort of jazzy style.
Yeah.
Big fan of hers.
Must take note.
And Stuart Mason, which magwood did he write for? He said, one of the most beautiful songs Ray Davies ever wrote. The simple No Return is a quiet tune given a perfectly simple arrangement consisting entirely of a single acoustic guitar, bass, and brushed drums. It certainly has that kind of bossa nova feel to it, doesn't it? And I think that this is such a lovely move from the previous tracks.
Absolutely, yeah.
And very un-English, very sort of Astrid Gilberto kind of girl from Ipanema kind of feel to it, which is lovely.
If I could see just how lonely my life would be if
You've certainly got the feather boa for this, haven't you?
Well, I could.
There's no return. Star would shine no more. I would walk up and down and slowly move. I would have fun, but
so in my notes for this, it says, unfortunately, Astrid Gilberto never covered No Return, which is a shame because Davis's artfully naive lead vocal, which flirts with pitch problems in much the same manner as Gilberto's trademark desafindo style. It sounds like he wrote the song with her in mind. And it's very much that ilk, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Starts with Perry Cobo's song,
Yeah. So is this a favourite of yours from the album, do you think?
I like it as, it's one that I would put, say, into one of my own playlists and so forth. But it's a style of music I like a lot as well. So. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think it's one of the high points of the album.
Well, the pièce de résistance is there at the last.
So, Harry Rag.
This I really love for a very different reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Go on. Let's.
Okay. We'll give you a little burst and then we'll have a chat about it. So what do you like about this then?
This the whole that military rhythm, if you like, or it's almost, everybody get into their straitjackets, as it were, but at the same time we're all having fun. Not. Perhaps you could help me with the Harry Rag piece, though.
Yeah, so that is rhyming slang for fag, as
There you
in
go.
cigarette. And in the notes here it says, well, first of all, there's a lot of names in this.
There is, yeah.
Clearly, he's speaking from a position of knowing these people or having created these people in his mind.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, he's so cute.
The smart young ladies of the day who don't roll their own, but who love lighting up a cig from a ready-made packet. There's a bit in here about someone. Here we go. Tom's old ma is a dying lass. Soon they reckon she'll be pushing up the grass. I.e. buried.
I was buried, yeah.
And her bones might ache and her skin might sag, but still she's got the strength to have a Harry Rag. And I guess that now it seems so odd, doesn't it? It seems odd because nowadays, I was going to say nobody smokes. Very few people smoke these days. Yeah. And you're not exposed to smoking in the way that you were in those days. Everybody smoked. Absolutely everybody smoked.
Right, yeah.
And, I'm gasping for a fag is the normal parlance that people, particularly in the East End of London, would have said. Yeah. And you would always have a cigarette in your hand. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that he would have written one of these kind of funny songs about it. And it is almost like
music hall type.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say Pearly Kings and Queens.
Yeah.
It's that very East End Cockney kind of feel to it, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And in fact, we'll mention Damon Albarn at the end of the album.
Okay.
And I'll tell you for why.
Okay.
So that brings us on to Tin Soldier. So I went on a number of sites to find stuff out about this.
Yeah.
On this one, somebody has written WTF Ray. I have no clue what this is about. Any help? Yeah. This is just normal social critique, isn't it?
Yeah, and the tin soldier is a metaphor, I think, for, well, also, let's say, tin soldiers for the boys and tin cookers for the girls. I remember that from my childhood, but I loved to play with tin soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, I also got an undercurrent in this of people just basically in their regimented lives, so walking to the factory or to the pit or to the mill or whatever, doing your day's work, walking home, going to the pub, walking home, and it was like that kind of the very much a treadmill life. And I mean, I just love the opening. Just a quiet city sport with a wife and little kids to support, so immaculately dressed when he walks like a soldier on parade. It paints such a vivid mental image, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Also, just to note the additional musicians that are on this. I was introduced to the Mike Cotton Band.
Mm-hmm.
And this basically including a flute, a sax, and a trumpet, all on this song. So
here we go, Tin Soldier Man. Very catchy little hook, this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just a quiet city sport with a wife and little kids to support. So immaculately dressed when he walks like a soldier on parade. He's a tin soldier man living in a little tin wonderland. Very happy little tin soldier man when you set him on your knee. Every day you see his army
bits of this are very Beatlesy, aren't they? Very Beatlesy.
The influences were possibly certainly this similar anyway.
Yeah,
Different city perhaps, but nevertheless, we are still talking about Britain in the 60s and the
yeah,
capturing of a decade of so many emotive issues and
yeah.
activities.
Absolutely. So, Situation Vacant. I really like this.
21. Yeah.
I really like this song. And I think a lot of people did. It's been covered quite a few times. Not by anyone I know, I hasten to add, but
Okay.
Stupid Baboons, Symbols, Kevin Thister, and Chuck Prophet all covered this. And I kind of quite like this. I'm very lucky in that my mother-in-law clearly has very low expectations of her son-in-law, so I'm all right. But this idea that you're never good enough for, your son-in-law is never good enough. I kind of quite like that because it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? But it's
Situation.
kind of quite nice.
Yeah.
Susie and Johnny were happy and enough to pay the rent. But Johnny's mother-in-law had too much ambition, and this made Johnny very upset. So to keep his little mama satisfied, he went and bought the weekly classified, all for peace and quiet's sake. Johnny gave up his position just to please his mother-in-law. And so he left the job where he'd been all his life. He left and turned his back on the door. Now he's looking at the situation's vacant. Situation's vacant. Just to keep his little mama satisfied.
Yeah, nice. I love Hammond organ. It's very 60s and very and it's kind of quite a nice way to round out the first side of the album, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'll just finish with the first side. I have a quote here from James Pomeroy, who did a review in the Rolling Stones. And basically, this album, he stated, the best album the Kinks had made at that point, praising humor, cynicism, perception, and irony.
Mm. Yeah, so we turn the record over and Love Me Till the Sun Shines.
Yeah, this is special, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this. In one of the sites that I was kind of searching for stuff about them, and it says has a melodic tune that is upbeat and catchy. The guitar riffs complement the vocals, creating a pleasant listening experience. The song's arrangement is typical of the British invasion sound popular in the 60s.
Yeah.
Use of a sitar sounded like played on the guitar adds that Eastern feel that obviously the Beatles sort of championed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this I thought was a good start to side two.
Bluesy rock.
Yeah, and this absolutely is Beatlesy and Stonesy of the period, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just have to love me till the sunshine. You don't have to cook for me. You don't have to wrap me in. You just have to love me till the sunshine. Take my money, I don't mind. You got me such a helpless kind. You just have to love me till the sunshine. You don't have to sleep with me, rest your head upon mine. You just have to love me till the sunshine.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. One of the things just to note on this one, and there's not too many collaborations, if you like, in terms of the writing, but this one is Dave Davis's album, or not album, but actual piece.
Well, yeah.
He wrote.
Okay.
Just an interesting aside, because there's, further on there's where Dave and Ray again together, they wrote another one of the songs. But as I said, it's they're not many with Dave, as I said, leading on the songwriting.
So track 2, Lazy Old Sun. Again, I thought this was very Beatlesy. One of the comments that I got from one of the review sites was, this is a weird song. The lyrics and the music just sound like someone who is completely depressed. Yeah, I mean, it is. It could sap your energy, this song. I mean, I kind of quite like it, but it's had a good song in front of it, which has been quite kind of upbeat, and it's got a really good song after it. So it kind of sits there, and I can tolerate the fact that it's a bit of a downer.
It is what it is. Yes.
Yeah. So Lazy Old Sun.
Lazy old sun, what are you trying to summertime? Hiding away behind all those misty mountain clouds. I don't mind. Spend my time looking for you. For you are my one reality. When I'm dead and gone, your light will shine eternally.
I kind of quite like the way that it sounds like, when you were a kid and you would put your finger on the edge of the turntable and kind of let it slow down and speed up like that. And it's got a bit of that going on as an effect, which is kind of quite nice because it's unusual, isn't it?
But there's an unusual little burst in the middle of the song, and I think it kind of ends a little bit with the burst as well. But it's like, for me, it's a little gem in the middle of it.
Okay, let's play on.
Kiss me with one ray of light from your lazy old sun. You make the rainbows and you make the night disappear.
It's a little spoken interlude.
I beg your pardon?
It's a little spoken interlude.
I won't criticize my son. When I was young, my world was when you were young.
Hate that.
There was.
Sorry?
I said I hate that. Slit the wrist time, but there is, if listening to it afterwards, you'll get a little burst, which I rather liked in it. It's not one that I would play very often. An intellectual exercise, however.
Yeah, absolutely. So afternoon tea, I love this. Yeah. The description of this, the little rituals that there were when there were just the two of you, and then they're changed forever when you break up. And I kind of quite like that. And first couple of listens to this, I thought, yeah, it's okay. And then there is the most fantastic long guitar part that Ray Davies plays in this, which is like really Hendrix-like in terms of how he plays it. Yeah. And once I heard that and tuned into that, I just thought, yeah, this is really good. And I'd never rated him as a guitarist until I heard this, and I just thought, oh, I like what's going on there.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Afternoon Tea?
Beat pop, a whole music shift.
Yeah.
Go on.
Daytime won't be the same without think about that small cafe. That's where we used to meet each day. And then we used to sit a while, drink our afternoon tea. I'll take afternoon tea. Afternoon tea. If you take it with me. Afternoon tea. You take as long as you like. 'Cause I like you good. I take sugar with tea. Afternoon tea. You take milk if you please. Afternoon tea. Like you talking to me. Because you ease my mind. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba.
There's definitely a bit of Purple Haze going on in that guitar thing with all the bends. Yeah, so I love that. And Funny Face, although this is rather a depressing song, isn't it?
It's back to Dave Davis somehow, despite the fact that he, has is cited as being the sort of gregarious one, the one that's out there, even with his own music playing. Very often, and it goes back to the earlier one, Death of a Clown. He who is out there being flamboyant, laughing, and all the rest. He perhaps is that clown, crying clown. So there's that undercurrent for me running through. Or maybe I'm overthinking it. I'm sure.
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is the general consensus is that this is a
but he wrote this one.
terminal illness. So it's a bit of a grim story, really.
Yeah. But again, it's his written work.
Yeah.
What can I do about it? You say you want to stand on that. Politics not what for you. The only place to see you better I see you.
Yeah. So a bit miserable, really. But it comes on to a very nice song afterwards, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, very nice. Yeah. Very nice.
What are your thoughts on this one?
An all-time favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that I get no kicks bit, but it that was what made me think it's actually very Cole Porter like. This,
yes. Yeah, there's another in another review that I read there, the Noel Coward-esque is how it is described. But it's a nice lead in to. It's also described, I think, as sort of a very lazy shuffle as well.
Yeah.
So let's have a look and see.
Cool.
And as I said, it leads nicely into the Whistler's the Stones.
I get no kicks walking down Sappho Road. There's no more chicks left where the green grass grows up. I know that winter is here and of the season.
Yes, that voice is very Noel Coward, isn't it?
Steady on there, lad.
I just got mixed in all the clubs I know. Now labor's in, I have no place to go. You're on a yacht near an island in Greece.
just really charming, really,
Isn't it?
really charming.
Yeah. It's that just this is part, as I say, the range that's on this album, and I think for that range, why it has really been picked up since, and really individuals. There's something to say. There's something for everybody in the audience, in one respect, but each is a gem, and that each appeals to a particular audience. Very accomplished.
Yeah. So, which brings us on to the last track. So, in an interview, so interesting, Jim, that you would have said Damon Albarn should send Ray Davies a big fat royalty check for inspiration. Damon Albarn was interviewed on one occasion, and he was asked the question, if you could have written one song that you didn't write, what would it have been? And instantly he said Waterloo Sunset.
Yeah.
Which is funny because actually, although it is the most famous song on here, it's not my favourite song on the album.
Okay. Yeah. No, I well, when I say no, yes, to go back and to say revisit, but it is one that, in many respects, it's being covered and talked about by so many of the major stars that we have now, and there's one very, well, for me, a very unusual version of it, which is done by Annie Lennox. So you might actually have a look at it. It's quite pared back, but a very interesting one. But I mean, you've got the album, I think, is one that really appeals to the likes of Noel Gallagher as well. Certainly, some of the interviews that are the interviews done these days with some of the leading musicians is that they've actually come back. And so, just to recall that in 2003, Something Else was ranked the 288th on the Rolling Stones list of 500 greatest hits of all time. And it can be described, it's become a bit of a cult hit now. And so it's in that, as I say, I don't know what you'd call it, but the range of genres that are covered in the album is, could you say one genre that this album actually is, has it got one? No.
It is very varied. I mean, it is interesting that reading around this track, and often that there are comments about the wider kind of, when you read comments about a track, it's often comments about a wider thing, the people or the album or the whole band. So in February 2003, David Bowie was joined on stage by Ray Davies and performed a duet of this song. Ray Davies was a perfectionist, so before releasing the single, he revisited the song's location at sunset to ensure the atmosphere was right. And it's interesting because I don't hear perfection in the recording.
Okay.
So I do hear perfection in the Beatles recordings.
Okay.
And even though I'm not a fan of Oasis, although I can tolerate them more than I could, I hear perfection in their recordings. Okay. I don't hear perfections in this. I think it's not as polished as it could be. I think the songwriting is good, and I think the instrumental is good, and the vocals are good. They do what they need to do.
Yeah.
But I can't help thinking that it doesn't sound to me like they've spent countless hours mixing and recording.
But they haven't. That's part of what they has been recorded in terms of looking back on how it came together as well. It wasn't about achieving that kind of level of perfection that last time around when I was with you talking about Van Morrison. I mean, there's an example of a musician who just, perfection was the name of the game for him, and very hard, therefore, to play with him, if you like. But these guys, Raw, I think, is one. But again, before you play the song, I'll just again take another quote from the Rolling Stones, which is basically the listener is amused and confused, enchanted and entertained, and always questioning.
Yeah.
Not that you want all of that from an album, you just want to play background music. Well, this is not background music.
No, definitely not. So here we go.
But I hope it's
Yeah.
I know.
Dirty old river, must you keep rolling, flowing into the night. People so busy, make me feel dizzy, taxi light shines so bright. But I don't need no friend, as long as I gaze on Waterloo sunset, I am in paradise. Every day I look at the world from my window. But chilly, chilly is the evening time. Waterloo sunset's fine. Waterloo sunset's fine. Terry meets Julie, Waterloo Station, every Friday night.
It is a nice track. It is a nice track. My favourite track from the album, definitely Afternoon Tea, though.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
But,
it's just, yeah. The romance, there's a romance, but it's a detached, it's inside a window, it's looking at a painting or a landscape that's twice removed, if you like, from the reality. And it's quite visceral in a way, I suppose. But the Terence and Julie, it is suggested, one suggestion is that, again, one of the sort of romance films, Far from the Madding Crowd.
Yep.
And in a sense, the love story there, but again, always very wistful. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he went to art college, and it might actually also again bring some of the resonance of his experiences. I just think that, the body of work that these two guys have done since and before, and I'm looking forward, in fact, to that Journey 1 and Journey 2 over between now and into 2024 to see how it will be received now, because I think the world order is very much back to a lot of what was observed.
I would completely agree. It's been a great week listening to this. It has been a real education, and I think what was really interesting for me is that, with the exception of Waterloo Sunset, I didn't really know any of the songs on here, and I've thoroughly enjoyed learning them. So, Helen, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next week, I'm joined by Eric Rosen, and this will be something that I'm already looking forward to. We're doing Diamond Life by Sade, which is
lovely.
a wonderful album that I know from my youth. Well, a wonderful album, or so I think. We shall see. We shall see. So until then, thank you all very much for joining. Thank you, everybody in the comments. Thank you for viewing, and hopefully see you all next week. And until next time, Helen.